Hello and good afternoon. We're going to talk about a little something different today. This is a lever action Model 94 Winchester 3030 lever action. They're beautiful little rifles. And as you can see, most people don't know what they're used for and what the distance on them are. People have been using these for centuries. From generation to generation to generation. The 3030 happens to be one of the best all-around rifles that a man can buy. Because they all said it took more deer than everything else in the woods. And the odd six came along. But what do you think they used in Alaska to kill grizzly bears with? 3030. What do you think they used right here in the United States? 3030. But why is the 3030 so overlooked now? Because of bigger popularity, more speed, more faster on the bullet. But they could make better 3030 shells. Now they have a Maruku company called Made in Japan. Why did everybody go over to Japan and take rifles to Japan with them? Because they're master copiers. If you want the original, then you have to buy something that says Winchester Model 94 3030 American made. How many years did they make these? Not too many. For a while there, that's all that was made. But they were considered a rich man's gun, and they still are. Why? Because when you start talking 3030s and lever actions, you're talking about the best in the world. Sure, everybody says, well, it's just a 3030. Well, if it'll kill deer, it'll kill everything else. If it'll kill elk, it'll kill everything else. These lever action machines are very fast, depending on the shooter. And it loads through here in a gate, which they call the gate, which is this little metal piece. This is your open box top where it flips out. This is your hammer. These rifles were world famous. Why are they so famous? Because people used them. You always see them in westerns, you see them in old movies. They used them. And it is right. The cowboys did have something like this riding around on the saddle. It was called a saddle gun. Fast, easy, convenient to use. Anybody could use it. This thing right here is a killing machine. 3030 is world famous. Why? Because you could still kill things up to 200 or 300 yards with it. You could kill a grizzly if you had to kill something with it. This pretty much covers a lot of ground. What's the downsides of the 3030? Not many shells made for it. You either go with 170 or 150. If they had a variety of shells for this, would this become more popular than any other rifle again? You bet your ass. What's good about the 3030? Everything. It's fast, it's sleek, it's designed right, and it was used for years. For years. This one holds 7. 7 rounds up here in the mag, and 1 in the chamber, which would actually be 8. This rifle's unloaded now. This rifle is a treasure. A lot of people say, well, just a 3030. Well, you ask anybody who shot a lot of deer, eaten a lot of deer meat, just a 3030. Or somebody that shot a lot of elk. Everybody says, well, you got to be within. So if you're a really good hunter, you can get close enough to elk to kill one with one of these, no problem. It's not always your caliber, it's the hunter. It's the shooter behind these. At one time, these were so popular that this is what everybody used to get their point across. These were America's first, I would say, first really aggressive lever action rifles. They were the first repeating arms, even before John Moses Browning came along with the BAR. And everybody looks at them and they say, oh, they're just slow and junky and they look like they're cowboy guns, right? That's what everybody says. But how many people have taken deer with one of these? How many people have taken elk with one of these? How many people have taken these and they made these their primary weapon of choice? Primary rifle. How many people have shot in hogs with these? Everybody says, oh, it's just a 30-30. What that means is it's 30 grains of powder and a 30 grains of powder combined in a 30 size casing. 30-30. This is fabulous. This has killed a lot of stuff. This is the first time I've ever really shelled this rifle. What is it so important about this rifle that makes this rifle so much different than others? Wham. And if you don't want to shoot them, you got to remember something. You are the safety. That's why that hammer's there. You are the safety with all things. It doesn't have the traditional safeties on it. You are the safety. It's every firearm you pick up. There's nothing wrong with these rifles. It's from generation after generation after generation after generation after generation. What makes them so special? Not just a second and she's loaded and then it's unloaded. And these were meant to put meat on the table. They were meant to do stuff with them. Everybody says, well, what a fucking idiot to think that the 30-30 is better than a lot of things. .30-30 outperforms the .44 Magnum by quite a fucking bit, doesn't it? They make these in pistol cartridges, don't they? Back in the old days, back in my grandfather's day, they had rifles just like these, but they were in the 25-20, 22 mag. But when that 30-30 came out, it became extremely popular, didn't it? It even went in the military service. But what's wrong with the 30-30s today? Made in Japan. Just a cheap copy. You want the real thing? Go out and bring back the American 30-30, the gun that won the West. Winchester. Bad mistake. Pay the American people what they're worth. These were made by the Olin Company. If anybody's not familiar with that, that means that there was an old rifle company that bought into this and they started making ammunition. They made these for people to feed their families. They made these rifles for something to be special. Some of them are still 100 years old. This one I happen to hold is actually about my age, 50 years old. 52 years old. An incredible firearm. Great piece of history. But everybody says, well, you can't shoot only so far with that. Really? I mean, people have shot deer 300 or 400 yards with one of these. There have been people that know how to use them. If you know how to use something, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter if it's pretty or if it's great looking or if it's just another firearm. It matters if you can use it. Now everybody says, well, where does that leave me? Well, I'm damn near 50. And this is what rifle that I kind of wanted when I was a kid. It's not a kid's rifle. Because where's the safety? This is your only internal safety right there, that hammer. You are the safety. Safety begins with you, and you always should be thinking about where that muzzle's pointed, where this rifle's pointed, what this rifle's all about. When we begin to talk about the 30-30, we talk about a lot. Everybody's like, well, what's the ballistics on it? Ballistics are good. This is a 400-yard, 500-yard rifle if you had to. People might say, well, that's kind of hard to believe. Well, if the old timers could make it work, and they understood it, a lot of people say, well, that's only 30-30, you'll only shoot so far. That's a bunch of bullshit. It's a very powerful cartridge. If it hits a deer at 200 or 300 yards, the deer's dead. You hit an elk with a 170 grain bullet at 200 yards, that elk is deader than a doornail. The secret to these is being able to know your bullet drop. Once you know the bullet drop of the 30-30, then it begins to change things with all rifles. Everybody says 6.5 Creedmoor. Really? 30-30's got a lot of power behind it. Carries a pretty damn big bullet. But you've got 7 shots. It can be as fast as you want it to be with this lever action. The reason that they call it a lever action is because every time you touch this, you bring this back, you push it forward, and it loads another shell. Eject, load. Eject, load. You do that 7 times super quick on an animal, and you got him at less than 200 yards, and you put 1 into him, he's going to die. How do I know? Because so many people have shot deer with just, 1 shot from a 30-30. They're not out there dinking around. They're not out there playing around. They're taking these as meat rifles. All the old timers had them, and they worked. They work on trap lines. They work up in Alaska. They'll work everywhere. What's wrong with having one of these? Nothing. But everybody says, well, are there better guns? Of course there's better guns. But why do I prefer the 30-30? Light on recoil. That's one reason. You can put 150 grain in there and she's light. She does the job. It does the job which it's intended to do. What's the distance? 300-400 yards? People are saying, I don't believe 300 yards. Oh, I don't believe that somebody could do that. How big's the deer ribs? From the vitals on the deer, is it 42 inches or bigger? Is that bigger than a paper plate? Probably about 2 paper plates, damn near, huh? You know where to estimate this at? You put it right through the lungs. And they're dead. Where are they going? Nowhere. All professional hunters had a way of, instead of shooting them in the lungs, what I do is I shoot the front shoulders. Instant death. Because the animal can't move, he can't go nowhere, and he's done. People say that wastes a lot of meat. Not really. 30-30 is world famous for doing the job. It's sleek, it's fast, it's easy to use, it's fun. And we live up here in Montana where these rifles are necessary for survival. Could this be used as a survival rifle? You bet your ass. But what's wrong with them? Nothing. Are there some downsides? Yes, there is. These can jam up. These can have parts break. These older ones like this can have problems. And then you're off seeing a gunsmith or trying to get somebody to copy the parts for you. If If Winchester would have been smart, they'd have left a company here in America that could fix these. Just dedicated just these and these alone. This is an American classic. This right here, when you pull that hammer back, it means that she's ready to go. All you do is let off on this right here. Bang, it sends an explosion down the barrel. And you get ready to send another one. Right behind it. How many hog hunters use these? All the time. Every professional that you see uses these, but what's wrong with these rifles now? Collector's items? A lot of people don't want to take a rifle like this because they say, oh, it's a collector's item. I ain't worried about whether it's a collector's item or not a collector's item. Why do we buy rifles then? Just to look at them? Not me. I buy them for use, for tactics, for an advantage. I'd much rather have this rifle if I had to go deal with a bad grizzly up close, say at 100 or 200 yards. In Alaska, a lot of people would much rather have these. Why? Because they're fast and it's a lot of firepower. 7 shots of 30-30. Very powerful. It'll take and roll a black bear. It'll roll a grizzly. I'd say at 200 yards you'd roll a grizzly, putting 4 or 5 shots of 30-30 into him. Just as quick as you could pump the action. These are meant for a purpose. Everybody says brush gun. I say grizzly gun. Last ditch effort. And it will do the job. Everybody says, well, it's just a 30-30. Why do you give it so much credit? Well, a lot of people like the odd 6. I'm a big odd 6 lover myself. But what's wrong if you're going to go into the frickin' field, have something that's sleek, that's fast, that's meant to do the job? These have been doing a job for centuries and centuries and centuries. And you've heard a lot of old timers, hey, I've shot this at this distance. Do you think an old timer, a lot of them are going to lie about how far they shot stuff with the 30-30? They don't have to. Because the proof is on the wall. It's on the meat that they put across their tables. And the 30-30's become extremely popular again. Why? Because it's got less recoil than other rifles? What's the one thing that stops everybody from being super accurate? Recoil. Who in the hell wants to shoot a 300 Win Mag and feel like my shoulder hurts? Or a 338 Win Mag and you're going to shoot that only 2 or 3 times? Shoulder's going to hurt. I could put a great big recoil pad on this and it ain't going to hurt me. And it'd be fun and comfortable to shoot. But why do I have it in this configuration? Everybody says collector's item, collector's item. It's not a collector's item. It's meant for shooting. And when you're going to shoot something, look at the size of that right there coming out of there. That's a pretty damn big bore, really. And they are fast. There are people that can empty these in 7 shells in less than 4 seconds. Or less. And hit the target. You get hit with one of these, and it split a man in half, damn near. You get hit with 3 or 4 of them. Damn near split a person in half. These will go right through a bulletproof vest. No problem. But what's the downside of the 30-30? This right here. A lot of people ain't used to that. Once you get used to that, it's easy. It's just right now. They made a show called The Rifleman. And he had a big loop on that son of a bitch, and it wasn't a 30-30. It was a smaller caliber. But did it serve him? Was it fast? Anybody's ever seen Chuck Connors knows what The Rifleman is. And you know that rifle was extremely fast. And people are people that could do that in real life and hit in real life and show off real fancy skills. But it takes years of practice with one of these. But what's the nostalgia behind it? Well, let's say I had to take a rifle in and I had a grizzly or I had a bear or I had to use it for something that was bad or I just had to use it, period. These are rifles that work. These are rifles that have a purpose. When you see these rifles, a lot of people overlook them and they say, too expensive. They are now. Why? Because nobody wants to buy a Japanese rifle. Even though the Japanese might make a better 30-30, I don't know. I prefer to always stick with something that's made in America, something that's always worked for generations to generations to generations to generations. And they are wonderful. They just work. They are meant to perform a job. That job is to save my life. That job is to put down grizzly bears. That job is to put down deer. That job is to do whatever I want this rifle to do. If it can't do the job I want it to do, I don't want to own it. There are other rifles that are better. There are other rifles that are way worse than this. And I'm going to talk about some of the benefits of this. Once you get used to using irons, front sight, back sight, target. Front sight, back sight, target. Once you get used to that idea, these are way more deadlier than deadly. And there was a time in our country when the police departments carried these around. You heard me, right? They carried them around. Why? Because they were deadly, 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 deadly fast. If you had to be fast, and the first one had to count, you can't get no faster than this. It takes, some people could do it, and they're already there, and it's already sent. Watch. And it's already sent off, and all you have to do is squeeze the trigger. That's pretty damn fast to me. These were meant for speed demons. People love to show them off as a speed demon. I would never want to use it as a speed demon because it's unsafe in a way. Because it's you're gonna have to have control over the rifle. That's a bad thing. But when a lot of people would do is they'd have one in the chamber, one in here, and 7 more of his buddies ready to go in a bad situation. Anything gets hit with a 30-30. Does it go down? Yep. It's 30 caliber. There's 30 grains of powder shooting a bullet that's 150 or 170 grainers. And they're maxing out close to other big game rifles. This is a big game rifle, but this is a very special big game rifle. Not everybody can afford these. Not everybody thinks, well, it's just a rifle. It's the person behind it. It's the training that goes with these. With all rifles. You could have a bolt action and be just as fast as anything else if you practice. That's why they told people to practice. This is what they used to protect our timber. This is what they used to defend a lot of things because they thought these were great. Why did people think these were so great? It's because in a second they could just reach over, bring it down, be on target, bang. And once they hit something with this, do you think they're worried about it getting back up? Nope. But what if these? How many animals do you think something like this has killed? Mine, I don't know. How many animals do you think the 30-30 has killed in a lifetime? Was it the gun that some of the old timers that were buffalo hunters? Did they use 30-30s? Yep. You always see 30-30s in the movies. Yep. You think there's some truth behind that? Gotta think, a buffalo's a big ass animal. To get within 100 yards and put one right through the shoulders? You think this rifle wouldn't do it? Anybody got any doubts? I guarantee you, at less than 100 yards, this will kill anything that I want to kill. Even at 200 yards, 300 yards, 400 yards, it gets out there. But there have been people that have shot these so far away that people are like, I don't believe it, because they've had practice and training with it their whole life. A lot of people say stick with one rifle your whole life. And why do I like the 30-30? Well, let's see, how much meat does a man really need to put on his table? How many times does a person need something for self-defense? That right there loads it, and it's quiet. Could this be a self-defense rifle? Yeah, it could. Think about it. Something gets hit by a 30-30 lever action round. And let's look at the rounds for the 30-30. Since we're talking about that, let's take a look at them. So people know what the hell we're talking about here. This thing right here, if you could see it, is a 30-30 round. See how it's flat? Do you see how big a piece of lead that is? That's a pretty damn big piece of lead. A piece of lead hit in that damn big, hitting something, and getting back up. That's a 170 grain piece of lead. Imagine that hits something. Full tilt and boogie. At 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards. Imagine that hits an elk. You think an elk can even survive that? Nope. People for years and years and years have used this round right here. The 30-30 round. They make 30-30s in different variations. But the most popular variation nowadays, that you don't see very many of them, is the lever action. But I like the bolt action. No one can argue with this. Let's take a look at something else. Let's read about the speed at which this bullet's going. On this box of 30-30 here, here's a box that says 30-30 on it. And it'll tell you the speed it's supposed to. And it even has rules and safeties, even on a box of 30-30 shells. It says high velocity, 20 centerfire cartridges. And it says, treat every gun as if it were loaded. Don't rely on the safety. Never load a gun until ready to use. Watch the muzzle and key to point in a safe direction. Know your target and what's beyond. These are even the safeties that go with this box. Even Remington understood. A lot of children, a lot of people have downside all kinds of rifles. Is this a kid's rifle? No. Why? Because all you got to do is pull that back. You got rounds in there. Pull that hammer. She goes off. So to do this properly, the safest way, what you do is you take your thumb, you put it on this hammer, and you slowly let it ride forward. You are the safety. These are fabulous little rifles. I'm a Montana born and raised kind of person. I know I talk a lot of things about love and how we're supposed to love our neighbors and what we should believe in. But there are times when people are going to go out and do wrong, they're going to go out and do wrong. These rifles right here are meant to stop people from acting squirrely. Well, what do you mean? Every rifle has a purpose. 30-30's got a place too. It's light on recoil. Can anybody learn how to shoot this? I can hand this to a 10-year-old and say, shoot this. I can hand this to a little old lady and say, shoot this. You put 150 grains in there, a little old lady can handle this. A 10-year-old could handle this. But not necessarily, because he doesn't think of this right here. This is why people die. Bang. Once that hammer strikes this, that bullet's gone. Or they forget. They go to cycle another one, they get all excited. Bang. Bad deal. That's why they put a safety here, they put a safety up here. Put cross-bolt safeties on them. Wasn't a bad idea. But you are the safety. If you understand that you got to just let this hammer down with your thumb or with your fingers or however you want to do it. A lot of people used to do it this way. There's all kinds of ways to do this. And you let it down easy, where it doesn't really even touch the firing pin. But the safest way is to stick your thumb on top of the hammer, hold the hammer until it goes all the way forward, and let off on the trigger and let it slide forward. You got to remember that these rifles have been doing a job for centuries and centuries and centuries. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're still being used. So what does that tell you? Tell you 30-30 is extremely popular. 30-30, does it work? It has to work. Why? What is so cool about the 30-30? Everybody asks me, what's so cool about it? Look at it. Reminds you of an old cowboy movie. You always see people in the old Western movies, they said, I got a 30-30. Still one other company that has never sold out, and I'm so proud of them. They're called Henry. You get yourself a good Henry lever action, you've got probably the best rifle in the world. But Winchester, a little bit more rare because now they're dumbasses, don't understand. Keep everything American. They betrayed America for money, just to copy their products. That's why everybody wants an original Winchester American 30-30. And what does this one say on here? Winchester, model 94, made in New Haven, Connecticut. Proof-tested steel. This one's been very special to me and dear to my heart. Why am I showing you these rifles? These are not all the rifles I own. But why am I showing you this one? Because if you see one, maybe you should buy it for yourselves. I think Maruku could be making really good 30-30s. They make the best copies of everything. But I bought an American because I love saying what I am. I'm proud. They don't make these no more. What's wrong with people? Big bullshit stories? Oh, it's only good for 50 or 100 yards. Oh, it's only a 30-30. Only. If you don't do a lot of shooting with a rifle, you don't know. If you don't spend time with a rifle, you don't know. Every rifle is hard work. It's hard work. You've got to be able to hone your rifle skills. Could I take this rifle tomorrow? Take it out and stretch it all the way out to 300 if I had to? Maybe. A lot of people say, wow, I've never seen that before. Because they don't work with their rifles. A lot of people buy one box of shells and say, oh, I'm a good shot. They don't care about their rifles. They don't take care of them. They don't love them. They just love the bullshit stories. You know what I tell everybody? What's wrong with saying I shot a deer at 50 yards? Every year for years. What's wrong with saying I shot a deer at 100 yards? What's wrong with saying I shot a deer at 150 yards? Why do we always have to say, oh, I shot a deer at 800, 1,000 yards? Dumbass. If you're a good hunter and a good shooter, you should be able to get close enough to the animal, be able to put it down, and do it humanely. Will this rifle do that? Bet your ass it will. Has it killed a lot of animals? Probably. More than I'll ever know about. Why was it number one? Because these are what people had, and they made them work. They didn't have a choice. It couldn't be like, oh, this is a game when people came way the hell out west, huh? Back in my dad's day when they were in the wagons, people that had these were thought to be millionaires. Because they had to make these work. They didn't have money.